Namaste children, welcome to our next class. In last class you learned about different solutions and the substances what are called solvents, solutes and solution meaning. These all you learned. In today's class we'll see the insoluble substances which are evenly mixing. When two substances evenly mix with each other, a solution is formed, that you know very well. But some substances will not mix with the solvent evenly. So those substances are insoluble substances. Now we'll do one small activity. For doing this, you need 3 beakers labeled as 1, 2 and 3 and 200 ml of water in a bottle and 2 spoons, 1 tablespoon of crushed dry leaves and 1 tablespoon of sand, a filter paper fitted in a funnel, your content book, notebook and the worksheet. Now the words you are learning here are decantation, decantation, decantation meaning the process of pouring clear liquid from the top and the sediments are formed.
Decantation. The process of pouring clear liquid from the top after sediments are formed.
Now the next word is filter, Filter. Filter means a material with pores used for separating two materials.
Filter. A material with pores used for separating two materials.
Now the next one is residue, Residue. Residue means a solid that is obtained after passing the mixture through a filter paper.
Residue. A solid that is obtained after passing the mixture through a filter.
Now the next one is filtration, Filtration. Filtration meaning the process of passing a mixture containing insoluble particles through a filter.
Filtration. The process of passing a mixture containing insoluble particles through a filter.
And the next one is sedimentation, Sedimentation meaning the process of allowing heavy insoluble particles to settle down at the bottom of the liquid.
Sedimentation. The process of allowing heavy, insoluble particles to settle down at the bottom of liquids.
So you are going to learn all these keywords in this particular chapter and their meaning, what actually the decantation and sedimentation and filtration means, and you are going to do this practically. So here you take 3 beakers and name them as 1, 2 and 3, and take water bottle and fill these beakers with half of the water as shown in the figure, and you also need a funnel and a filter paper. Now take some sand and the dry leaves, and these are the things you need for doing this activity. To take a tablespoon of crushed dry leaves and the sand. Both mix in first and second beakers. And now you observe, are these things going to dissolve in the water? Are these solutes evenly mix with the water or not? You just observe. Are they going to mix with water? Not at all. In yesterday's class also you had seen those things are not mixing with the solvent, that is water. So they are insoluble substances, not mixing with the solvent at all. Then how to separate these insoluble substances? There are 3 different ways for separating these insoluble substances. That's what you will see in this video. How to separate these insoluble substances you are going to learn or see in this video. Now once watch the video to understand more about the lesson. Here you can see there is decantation process. Sedimentation means all these insoluble substances reach to the bottom of the glass or beaker or the bottle. That's called as sedimentation.
Heavy insoluble solids can be separated using sedimentation process. As heavier solids settle down, the clear liquid at the top is poured into another container. This process is called decantation. Light insoluble solids are separated using filtration method. If insoluble solid particles are very small, we can use filter paper in a funnel to separate solids.
So in this video you can see what's the meaning of decantation, sedimentation and filtration. Sedimentation means the insoluble substances, when they are mixed in the solvent, they reach to the bottom of this glass tumbler, and whenever the sediments, the insoluble substances, are settling at the bottom, this process is called sedimentation. Without disturbing this, you can pour only the clear water into another glass. That's called as decantation.
Heavy insoluble solids can be separated using sedimentation process. As heavier solids settle down, the clear liquid at the top is poured into another container. This process is called decantation.
Now some substances are mixed in the solvent, that is in the water. They can be separated by using a filter paper. So this filter paper stops the insoluble substances. Only the solvent can come to the another glass.
Light insoluble solids are separated using filtration method. If insoluble solid particles are very small, we can use filter paper in a funnel to separate solids.
So if the insoluble substances are very small in size, they may come in the decantation method without filtrating. So in this case we can use the filter paper, which stops even the smallest particles of insoluble substances. So the residue will be left over on this filter paper. Now we will discuss the activity. How did the sand and dry leaves act differently in water and why? The sand settled down in the beaker when kept undisturbed, when the crushed leaves floated in the water. This is because sand is heavier than water while the leaves are lighter than the water. That's why the dry leaves will float on the water, whereas the sand will reach to the bottom. But both sand and crushed dry leaves are insoluble in water. They are not mixing in the water. Sand is heavy insoluble solid, while the crushed and dry leaves are light insoluble solids. Now, how do we separate insoluble solids from the water? By decantation, sedimentation, or the filtration process. We separate heavy insoluble solids like sand by keeping the mixture undisturbed for some time so that the heavy particles settle down. This process is called sedimentation. Solid particles that settle at the bottom of the beaker are called sediments. So, sedimentation is followed by decantation, where the liquid at the top is poured into the another container. Now we separate light insoluble solids like crushed dry leaves by passing the mixture through a filter paper that has small pores. These pores allow only the liquid to pass through it. This process is called filtration. The insoluble solids collect in the filter as residue, so which is left over on the filter called as the residue, and the water which is passed through the funnel called as filter, and this process is called filtration. So the methods of separating insoluble solids are sedimentation. Heavy insoluble solid settles down at the bottom, they are known as sediments, and the process is called sedimentation. And decantation means after sedimentation the water is collected from the top called as decantation. And third process is filtration. Light insoluble solids collect on the filter paper called as filtration process. So these three different separating or purification methods you learnt in this chapter. Now, what will happen if the size of the insoluble solid particles found in water is smaller than the pores of the filter paper? Then, if the size of the insoluble solid particle is smaller than the pores of the filter paper, then the insoluble solid will pass through the pores. No residue will left on the filter paper. To filter an insoluble solid by filtration, we should ensure that the pores of the filter paper are same enough to stop the insoluble particles. So filtration process is done whenever the pores of the filter paper is bigger or smaller than the insoluble substance, then only it can stop and separate the residue. Now we will see the worksheet which is given here. So the first one is write the type of insoluble solid in each mixture, heavy or light. One has been done for you. Chili flakes and water. So, chili flakes are very light in weight, so they'll float on water. Peas and water. Peas are heavier than the water, so they will go down. So, you just write either they are light or heavier. You write here heavy. Peas are heavy than the water. And almond and the water. Almond is also goes down to the bottle or glass if you put in the water. That is because they are also heavier than the water. Black pepper powder and water. It is light in weight. Black pepper powder is light in weight, so it floats on the water. Look at the picture and complete the table. So method 1 is what process and method B is which process. So just now you learnt that we use filter paper in filtration method and we pour the clear water in decantation method. Name of the method, is it sedimentation, decantation or filtration? So this is a filtration process and this one is decantation. One difference between the two methods. What is the difference? Here the insoluble substances are left over on the filter paper. Here insoluble, very small insoluble substances will left on the insoluble substances will left on filter paper, whereas here they move, small insoluble substances will move along with the water. That is only the difference between the decantation and the filtration. One example is a mixture that can be separated by this method. By filtration method, what can be separated? Tea and coffee. Tea and coffee are the examples for filtration method. Your mummy used the funnel for filtering the coffee and tea. You can observe this in your home. And for decantation, we use for cleaning water. Generally in rural areas, people will use this decantation method for cleaning the water. Hung curd. Hung curd is made by putting curd in a muslin cloth so that water is removed from the curd. Can we use a sieve as shown in the picture in place of a muslin cloth, and why or why not? Muslin cloth is used to separate the water from the curd. Instead of that muslin cloth, if we use this funnel, the water cannot be filtered, or the curd from the curd water cannot be separated. Why? Because the funnel holes are bigger. Holes are bigger, so not only the water, even the curd is also pass through this funnel. That's why this cannot be used for removing water from the curd. So, understood, children, the different methods what we are using to separate the insoluble substances. Now we will move on to the practice questions. Before moving on to the practice question, you read the lesson clearly. Circle the thing that is lighter than the water and does not dissolve in it. So, sugar, can it dissolve in the water or not? Yes, it will dissolve. So, no need to circle. Kidney beans, rajma we'll call in day to day life, though they will not mix in the water, so you circle it. And cardamom powder definitely mix in the water, so no need to circle. Cashew nuts, cashew nuts also will not dissolve in the water. And now coriander leaves are also insoluble in water. Why do we pass the fruit pulp through a strainer or sieve before serving it as juice? Why? Because if any outer layer is there, that can be stuck up in the funnel, and only the pure pulp will come to the glass. To separate only the pulp. To separate pulp, we are using strainer. There is sand and pebbles in a bucket filled with water. How can we separate the pebbles from the water? Draw a diagram to explain the process. So, anyhow, the pebbles will be at the bottom of the bucket. They will form a layer like sediments by sedimentation process. And for separation, you can do decantation. Slowly you pour into another beaker, then these pebbles and sand can be removed from the water. So you can draw here a sedimentation and the decantation process. Draw the diagrams of these three methods, sedimentation, decantation and filtration methods, in your notebook and label the diagram, children. Thank you.